I'm Mary Lindsay, and presiding officer, and ask everyone to mute their microphones and only turn them on when they speak. Please announce your name when presenting. It is 10:01. So we'll go to Anna, and please have a roll call.
Yes, ma'am. Ledettrick Leonard. Ron Jemison. Natalie Enderman.
And I'm Mary Lindsay, and
Nayland Holman.
presiding officer, and ask
Here.
everyone.
Darren Peterson.
Here.
Laura Valdez.
Here.
Aurora Farthing.
Present.
Salvador Flores.
Present.
And presiding officer Mary Lindsay.
Present.
We have a quorum, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mhm.
We'll go to Agenda C, which is a general counsel training. And I understand we have Alec Pinchuk to do that for us. And we appreciate that. And we want to thank everyone for attending the meeting today.
Thank you. My name is Alex Penchuk. I'm an intern with the General Counsel's Office, and I will be presenting the training for the advisory board. So I'm just going to share my screen. Just need to change my system preferences. So it just says I have to quit and reopen for some reason. Is that okay? It just takes a second.
Alex, I have the PowerPoint. I can share my screen if you want to just keep moving forward with it.
Yeah, that would be great.
And Mary Winston TDLR, I want to give a big welcome to Alex. Alex, this technical difficulty is going to be the hardest part of this meeting for you. And we always have them, so no worries. Derek's got your back.
Thank you, Derek. Did you share your screen yet? Yes, okay.
Thought I did.
So today we'll be going over 3 acts that are important to the advisory board training. The first is the Open Meetings Act. The second is the Administrative Procedure Act, and the third is the Public Information Act. So for the Open Meetings Act, the purpose of the Texas Open Meetings Act is to ensure open and transparent government. The act requires meetings of governmental bodies to be open to the public and to be preceded by public notice of the time, place, and subject matter of the meeting. The provisions of the act are mandatory and are to be liberally construed in favor of open government. Next, I will go over some key concepts from the act. The first is a quorum. A quorum is a majority of the members of the advisory board or committee as fixed by rule or statute. A quorum of a governmental body, including an advisory board or committee, must meet in order to take an official action. If less than a quorum meets, the board or committee may have a discussion but may not take any official action. The next key concept is deliberation. Deliberation or discussion means a verbal or written exchange among a quorum of a governmental body or between a quorum of a governmental body and another person concerning an issue within the jurisdiction of the governmental body. The next concept are meetings. A meeting occurs anytime a quorum of a governmental body engages in deliberation regarding public business or public policy over which the governmental body has supervision or control, or anytime the body takes formal action. The act requires advance written notice of the date, time, place, and subject of each meeting held. TDLR provides this notice in the form of an agenda. The notice must be filed with the Texas Secretary of State at least 7 days before a meeting and must be posted online both by TDLR and the Secretary of State. A board or committee may not engage in discussions about a subject not included in the agenda. Now, you may be wondering, what about social functions, conventions, and workshops? while keeping in mind that a meeting occurs whenever a quorum of a governmental body engages in discussion about an issue within the governmental body's jurisdiction. Can a member ever meet in an informal setting without violating the Open Meetings Act? Yes. Members are free to engage in conversation that is incidental to the event. However, the discussion will be subject to the Open Meetings Act if a quorum of members is involved and the members either engage in a discussion or make decisions about board or committee business or take formal action. Next, I will go over some key points to keep in mind. Always be aware of any situation occurring outside of a properly noticed meeting in which a quorum of members is present or engaged in discussion. Do not engage in substantive conversations relating to board or committee business or policy when a quorum is involved and you are outside of an officially noticed and scheduled meeting. And lastly, beware of the walking quorum. A walking quorum occurs when fewer than a quorum of members engage in discussion about official business and then communicate those discussions to other members. While fewer than a quorum of members may participate in the initial communication, subsequent communication with other members will result in a quorum discussing official business outside of a public meeting. An example of this may be on a 5-member advisory board where 2 members engage phone calls and emails expressing thoughts on an upcoming rule change and exchange research that they will have individually performed regarding the issue. And afterwards, one of the board members subsequently forwards the exchange to a 3rd member. The members have now engaged in a walking quorum by engaging in a small group discussion outside of a properly noticed board meeting. Walking quorums can occur during conference calls, video conferences, hallway discussions, emails, texts, and other emerging technologies. The walking quorum concept, combined with newer technologies such as Twitter, Facebook, and instant messaging, raise new issues about meetings and compliance with the Open Meetings Act. Next, I will go over some best practices to help avoid a walking quorum. To avoid a walking quorum, members should not meet in small groups, discuss board or committee business, and then communicate those discussions to other members. They should not send emails or text messages to a quorum of members regarding official business, even if each email is addressed and sent to each member individually. They should not create posts on social media about board business where a likelihood exists that a quorum of members could participate in discussions. Or lastly, they should not ask a quorum of members, even on an individual basis, for feedback or comments on board or committee business outside of the public meeting. This is also known as polling, which is essentially conducting an informal vote on an issue. Some guidelines for open sessions. A board or committee is limited to discussing the specific items on the agenda. During the public comment portion of the meeting, members of the public are given an opportunity to speak, and the presiding officer may set reasonable limits on commenters. A member of the public or a member of the board may raise a subject that has not been included in the agenda. However, any discussion of the subject must be limited to a proposal to place the subject on the agenda for a future meeting. To avoid violating the act on the basis of insufficient notice, members should limit discussions to the specific agenda items contained in the posting filed with the Secretary of State, avoid allowing discussions regarding specific agenda items to wander off course into new issues that have not been noticed to the public, not respond to or discuss issues that are raised during public comment, but which are not on the agenda, and specifically identify items for future agendas and communicate those items to TDLR staff. There are penalties and remedies for Open Meetings Act violations. First, some civil remedies. Any interested person, including the media, may petition the courts to stop actions taken in violation of the Open Meetings Act. The Open Meetings Act also specifically states that an action taken in violation of the Act is voidable. Next, there are also criminal penalties. Members who knowingly participate in a walking quorum or who knowingly participate in a meeting that is closed to the public are subject to misdemeanor criminal penalties. The penalties range from a fine of $100 to $500 to confinement in county jail for 1 to 6 months, or both the fine and jail time. Some best practices for the Open Meetings Act. Avoid communications that involve a quorum of board or committee members about official business outside of a properly noticed public meeting, and during open meetings, confine the discussion to items that are specifically posted on the agenda. And then for resources that could help you follow the Open Meetings Act, the Texas Attorney General's website is really great for that if you want more information. The next act that I will discuss is the Administrative Procedure Act, also known as the APA. The purpose of the Texas Administrative Procedure Act is to establish minimum standards of uniform practice and procedure for state agencies and to provide for public participation and transparency during the rulemaking process. The APA definition of a rule. A rule is a statement of general applicability made by a state agency that implements, interprets, or prescribes law or policy, or describes the procedure or practice requirements of a state agency. A rule excludes a statement regarding only the internal management or organization of a state agency and not affecting private rights or procedures. A rule includes a new rule, an amendment to an existing rule, and the repeal of an existing rule. There are a few sources of rulemaking, such as legislative changes, advisory boards, TDLR staff, a 4-year rule review, and also rule petition. A rule petition involves any interested person that may submit a petition to a state agency requesting the adoption of a rule. An interested person is anyone who is a Texas resident, a business entity located in Texas, a governmental subdivision in Texas, or a public or private organization that is not a state agency but is located in Texas. Now I will go over the APA rulemaking process. First comes the rule idea and drafting, and then an internal review and analysis, followed by a review by the governor's office, which then the first advisory board meeting takes place. After that, the proposed rules are filed and published in the Texas Register, and a 30-day public comment period follows. Afterwards, there's a review of public comments and a second advisory board meeting. Afterwards, the proposed rules are adopted at a commission meeting. The adoption notice is filed and published in the Texas Register, and then the rules take effect on the effective date. Another way that the APA rule review process might take place would be programs that are on a 4-year schedule. There is a notice of intent to review the rule, and the public has 30 days to comment. The General Counsel's office then reviews comments and makes a recommendation to the Commission. The Commission then reviews the rule filing and comments and may readopt the rule. The Advisory Board will then be presented any comments and make recommended changes. Again, great rulemaking resources can be found at the Texas Attorney General's website. The last act that I will discuss is the Public Information Act, which is also known as the Open Records Act. This act is intended to allow public access to information about the affairs of government and the official acts of public officials and employees. The act makes all documents, records, and other information relating to official business open to the public, with some exceptions. The public information includes any electronic communication created, transmitted, received, or maintained on any device if it is in connection with official agency business. The act should be construed liberally in favor of granting requests for information. The way the process works is first a request is received. If you receive a written request for records or correspondence that looks like a public information request, please forward the request to the Office of General Counsel's Open Records team as soon as possible. If the open records team requests information from you, please respond again as soon as possible. The Act requires a prompt response. TDLR must respond to requests as soon as possible, but no later than 10 business days after receiving the request. In addition, we're not allowed to ask why someone wants the records. We can only ask for clarifications through the General Counsel's open records team. There is a general rule that we follow with some common exceptions and exemptions to disclosure. As a general rule, there's a presumption of openness. However, certain information is required to be redacted from open records. Examples include date of birth, most email addresses, driver's license, license plate, and vehicle identification records, credit card numbers, and HIPAA information or any information that is protected by the Texas Medical Records Privacy Act. Again, the Public Information Act has great resources at the Texas Attorney General's website. That is it for today's training, and thank you so much.
Okay, Alec, thank you very much. If there are no questions, we'll go to item D. And that's our approval of our minutes. And we appreciate that report, Alec. Thank you for helping us out.
Thank you for having me.
And so we will begin to look over the minutes. Is that right, Anna?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Are we going to share those, Anna, or from our emails?
No, you will just ask for a motion.
Okay.
If anybody has one.
Have you had time to look these over? And we'll need a motion when you get, whoever wants to make a motion when they get through looking over the minutes that were sent.
I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
This is Laura Valdez. I second.
And Ms.
Sorry,
Farthing did
Aurora
motion,
Farthing.
right? Thank you.
Yes, sorry about that.
Thank you. And I need to remind everyone to make sure they let us know who speaking, okay? Thank you very much.
I'll
We
go
have
ahead and
that,
do a
so-
roll call vote for you.
Okay.
Ledettrick Leonard. I'm sorry, sir, you're muted. Mr. Jemison is absent. Natalie Inderman,
Approve.
Nayland
Approve also,
Holman.
Mary.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Detrick Leonard, I approve.
Oh, thank you, sir. Nayland Holman,
I approve.
Darren Pearson,
I approve.
Laura Valdez,
I approve.
Aurora Farthing,
Aye.
Salvador Flores. Oh, I think he is. Oh, I'm sorry, sir, you're muted.
Approve.
Thank you, sir. And presiding officer, Mary Lindsay.
Approved.
The motion passes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to public comment. That's agenda item E. And we had 2 comments that were sent out for email to the advisory committee. I hope you got those. And if I'm understanding correctly, Anna, you can correct me. We have 1 person that's going to present. Am I right?
That is correct. One person did request to present today, but he is not in our meeting. He didn't log in.
Okay.
So we can skip that section as well.
Okay. That moves us right along.
Mhm.
So we didn't have anything for item E. So we'll go to item F, staff reports. In licensing division is the first staff report, and that's Yvonne Lopez, the manager. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Presiding Officer Lindsay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Yvonne Lopez, licensing manager for this program. You'll see that we have the licensing statistics for all of our licensed practitioners, the licensed establishments, and then we've got the total populations comparing them from fiscal year 2023 to the previous fiscal year of 2022. I would like to note that the statistics only are through May 31st of this year. And then if you go down to the next page, Anna, thank you so much, you'll see our contacts for Barbering and Cosmetology. Again, comparing them from the previous fiscal year to the current fiscal year. The current fiscal year is the darker bars that you see there, and the previous fiscal year is the lighter bars that you see there. And I'll be happy to take any questions if you have any.
Any questions?
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Okay. Our next report was from our Education Examination Division. And I didn't see Michael Strawn on here. Are you here, Michael? Or
Yes,
is
yes,
Ray
ma'am, I am.
Okay. Are you going to present?
I am. So good morning, Chair and members. My name is Michael Strawn. I'm the manager for our Education Examination Division. There'll be two parts. You'll also hear a little bit from my director here in a minute as well. But I'm going to give you the statistics and program updates at this point. So on your screen, you can see the total number of barber and cosmetology curriculum statistics. You'll notice that overall they're a little bit lower than what we've seen in the prior years, but we don't have the Q4 reports already, and we know that a lot of schools have been holding with the new curriculum updates coming as well. So that's to be expected, and we don't see any abnormalities there. If we can move down. Next is just the breakdown of our barber examination statistics by each of the license types, the pass rates, and again, these are well within what we typically see, very high practical rates, written pass rates are exactly where we usually see them at. Moving down to the next one will be the cosmetology. Again, you'll notice from quarter to quarter, in comparison, we stay pretty much exactly where we are on all of these examinations. So no abnormalities to report there either. Moving down to our last little bit of numbers. And this is our cosmetology continuing education statistics. We have a few less CE courses at this point in time approved. But again, we are still moving into our Q4 at this point and expecting a lot of updates. We had sent some information out about updating our applications for these, so we should see that number will come up as well within the next quarter. And then moving down to our last bit, which is our exam updates. We kind of wanted to give a little bit of background here, just make sure everybody's aware. I'm sure the community as a whole knows. But beginning September 1st, we have a lot of updates coming to our exams. So starting September 1st, all exam law and rules sections will now be referenced with the updated Chapter 1603 and Chapter 83 of the laws and rules for this program. Additionally, the cosmetology operator exam reference list has been updated. The reference list at any point in time, along with any of our references that are used for any of our exams, are in the candidate information bulletin. But this was updated to go with the Milady standard for the 14th edition, which will replace the 13th edition. And again, that will also take place on September 1st, 2023. And lastly, just for exam updates, this is something we wanted to throw out there. We've been getting a lot of questions about this recently. Were there questions about individuals seeking what they believe are accommodations and what we look at as modifications? So accommodations would be, somebody requesting an interpreter, or maybe they have dyslexia or different things. our vendor, us, we comply with all accommodation requests, reasonable requests at that point. However, we are seeing people that are asking for modifications to an exam, which is something we see in more of the high school world. Our exams cannot be modified. They cannot be made easier or less questions or anything else at that point in time, because these exams are testing for a minimally competent individual to ensure that they're not only know the minimal of the education requirements, but they're also safe to practice when they're out there. So we just wanted to bring that forward and let you know that we're here to provide reasonable accommodations, but we've seen a lot of requests lately to shorten or make an easier exam from somebody, and that's not an accommodation at that point in time. With that being said, that concludes my portion of the E&E updates, and if you all don't have any questions for me at that point, I will turn y'all over to my director, Ray Pizarro.
Do we have any questions as reported out? Thank you, Michael.
Miss Ann. Hello, I do have a question real
Salvador?
quick. Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Michael, real quick, thank you so much for that information. Great information, by the way. Do you happen to know why our failing rate is higher than our passing rate when it comes to the written exams? Is there anything being looked at, or what's the reason for that?
So this is something that we continually look at. As you may or may not know, we host exam review committees. That's actually how the changes coming September 1st are incorporated into these exams to be updated. It's comprised of subject matter experts across the industries. We look at these exams. We look at every single item on the exam to see how they're scoring. Are they keyed correctly? How those items are performing, and making sure that they're, that they're accurate. There are a lot of times we see with these exams, and when we look at the pass rates, we start to see that individuals who may pass on the first time do so at a much higher rate. And then individuals who do not pass often take this exam 3, 4, 5 times, and they tend to bring down the average, is what we see across the board. I'd really have to do some number crunching on this one to see exactly where that sits. But the written pass rate is an area that we've seen consistency in this exam. I know that everybody always wants 100% on their pass rates, but if we have 100% on our pass rates, that may tell us that we're not asking the appropriate questions to weed out individuals who are also not minimally competent at that point, if we're getting 100% pass rate. Again, we're happy to look at these things. We do look at these things with our psychometricians, with the subject matter experts, and develop our examinations based on that. So,
Thank you, sir.
yes, sir.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes, ma'am. All right. If there's no other questions, I'll turn it over to Ray Pizarro.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm Ray
Good
Pizarro,
morning.
Director for the Education Examination Division. I want to give you some updates on our Barber Cosmetology merge of the programs. If you all recall, we had summits delivered earlier this year, and we're there to deliver the message of the merging of Barber Cosmetology industry, which means we put together a new board that was created, you guys. The rules were adopted on January 1. With those adoption of rules included fee updates along with new curriculum changes. We also informed the industry during these summits that all of these changes, including changes and updates on how to register new students into the new shears, will be effective September 1, 2023. Well, there's been a lot of changes happening, and we will not be able to complete all of the changes we are anticipating on September 1, 2023. The most critical change is the one for the new shears. There's a lot of intricacy in the backgrounds that our IT has to do, so therefore we developed an alternative plan for schools to be able to teach both barber courses and cosmetology courses. My division will be conducting training later this month. Actually, later next month, it will be via a webinar to walk schools on what steps they will need to take if they choose to teach both barbering and cosmetology. We're also going to be delivering some additional training for all schools later this year. This is important because one thing to know for sure is that on September 1, every licensed school will be eligible to teach barbering and cosmetology. Now, how do you go by doing that is you would need to apply with that application to tell us that you're wanting to do these changes. Earlier I think it was July 17th, we sent out a notice to schools letting folks know that we are now accepting curriculum application if you are going to be making those changes. So again, we're going to be doing these trainings, more to come. We delivered part of this information back at the TIVA conference earlier this year, it was about a week ago now, and we will continue to make these announcements to all schools. So make sure if you're not signed up, those schools that are listening, please sign up to receive those announcements on our website. And that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ray. Does anyone have any questions? I do have a question. This is Mary Lindsay. Ray, I was wanted to know how those emails went out to notify of the curriculum because some schools did not receive that.
Yeah, and we heard that in the TIVA conference. The notice goes out based on the emails we have on file for the licensed school in Shears. So sometimes it's not going to be that instructor, Mary, who's actually teaching the class. So we often tell folks, and we told them at TIVA, make sure you tell whoever that administrator, whoever's email is on file to make sure that they forward those messages to you, because we can't accept more than one email in our Shears system. That's the issue there. But the notice and that information needs to be delivered to everyone else. And also, just to let you know, those notices, not only that they're sent to the school, but we also post it on our website on the cosmetology and barbering pages.
Okay, but I do have a concern because some people did not receive it and they were the contact person, and that's all I'll say about it, okay? Thank you, Ray. Anybody else want to say anything? Okay, is that it, Ray?
That's it for me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. And we look forward to that training for all.
Absolutely.
So we'll go to our staff report number 3, customer service, to the customer service division. And that's Claudia Enriquez.
Yes. Hi, good morning, advisory board members. My name is Claudia Enriquez, and I am the manager for this program. Since the last time we met, our statistics show that contacts peaked in the month of March at 11,761 total contacts for the cosmetology program. In the previous fiscal year 2022 report, contacts peaked in the month of March with 10,798 total contacts for cosmetology. Compared to fiscal year 2022, fiscal year 2023 shows an increase of contacts. Our statistics for the Barber program show that contacts peaked in the month of March at 1,960 total contacts. In the previous fiscal year 2022 report, contacts peaked in the month of May with 1,792 total contacts. So compared to fiscal year 2022, fiscal year 2023 does show an increase in contacts for both of these programs. The top 2 reasons our customers call in is for a license status and for initial application instructions. Other than those stats, I'll be happy to take any questions if you have any.
Any questions for the customer service report? Thank you very much, Claudia, for reporting. If there's no questions, we'll move on to the enforcement division. I think that's Morgan coming.
Hi, my name is Morgan Cumming. I'm a prosecutor with the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. And as you can see, the enforcement report has lots of statistics, so I'm not going to go through them in detail. However, if you have any questions, I would love to answer them. I'm going to say that's a no. So thank you, and you'll hear from the Enforcement Division later on regarding the criminal history guidelines and the enforcement plans. So you'll be hearing from us quite a bit in a moment. Thank you.
Okay. And number 5 on our staff reports is a Regulatory Program Management Division. Angela Sanders. Hi, Angela.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Angela Sanders. I'm the Senior Program Specialist with the Style and Wellness section of the Regulatory Program Management Division. I'd just like to highlight a couple of our current projects. We continue to support the program consolidation efforts that are required by House Bill 1560. And that includes, assisting with working to revise the combined barber and cosmetology licensing applications, as well as creating a Q&A manual for our customer service regarding the combined law and rules, and as well as frequently asked questions that we receive quite often. As far as outreach goes, as you can see, we've been pretty busy since our last advisory board meeting. I won't go through everything, every item on here. However, I do just want to highlight a few. We have traveled and attended these events with other divisions. First being the Barbering and Cosmetology informational summits that were held in Hurst, in Houston, as well as in Austin. Sean O'Neill and I presented information regarding the changes and updates as they pertain to establishments. We also participated in the Fade and Fashion Festival held in Laredo, Texas, April 15th and 16th. And at this particular festival, on the first day, RPM staff members, Sean O'Neill and I, as well as staff members from our E&E division, gave a presentation, again, on the changes as they pertain to both schools and establishments. And then on the second day of the festival, we ran an informational booth for the attendees. So next, we attended the International Congress of Aesthetics and Spa show that was held in Dallas, Texas on June 11th and 12th. And at this, we also conducted an informational booth and answered questions of the attendees that ranged anywhere from scope of practice questions, curriculum questions, that the attendees did have. And at this particular show, I'm happy to say our booth was very busy, consistently busy on both days. And we were able to, meet the needs of all the licensees that visited our booth. So, and I'd like to thank the E&E division for assisting us in this as we worked in shifts. We had to work in shifts to make sure all of the attendees' needs were met. As far as upcoming outreach that we have, we will be in attendance at the Premier San Antonio Beauty Show on October 1st and 2nd, as well as Image Expo in Houston on November 12th and 13th. If you have any upcoming conferences, meetings, or professional association meetings that you'd like for us to attend, whether it be in person or virtually, just please reach out to either Sean O'Neill or myself, and we'll be happy to meet with you. At this time, I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
Presiding Officer Lindsay,
Yes.
Mary Winston, if there are no questions, and I'm just poking in here because our public commenter had a couple of issues getting into the meeting, but he is now in the lobby and ready to provide that public comment. If it is okay with you, if we could back up the agenda to agenda item E, we could take Mr. Arrington's comment and then proceed with the staff reports.
That sounds good. Yes,
Okay.
we can have public comment. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'd be happy to take any questions.
I need to
that you may have.
go back to read that.
Mr. Arrington, before you begin your public comment, would you please mute the YouTube channel? We're getting a little bit of an echo there.
Yes, Mary Winston.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Are you ready, Anna, for me to read my directions?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead,
For
please.
Mr. Arrington? Okay. Welcome, Mr. Arrington. You will have 3 minutes to give the public comment. The board will not be able to ask questions or discuss anything that is said, but we're willing and ready to listen. And thank you for coming today and commenting. So I know Anna will be our timekeeper. Okay, you may begin.
Mr. Arrington, you're muted, sir.
That's what I thought. All right.
Are you ready,
I am.
Anna, for me to read my?
Yes, he can go
Okay.
ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome, Mr. Arrington.
Mr. Arrington, it looks like your YouTube channel is still loud.
The board will
If you
not
would mute your YouTube channel or miss it.
but we're willing and ready to listen. And thank you for coming today and commenting. So I know Anna will be our time.
Sir, if you could go ahead and just go to the YouTube channel that is showing the advisory board meeting and just exit out of there temporarily while you give your public comments.
Thank you so much for that, folks. Appreciate it, and thank you for this opportunity. In an email, Texas Department of Licensure and Regulation dated on April 6th, in part said the department will determine whether the reasons for adopting or readopting rules continue to exist by answering the following questions. Is it obsolete? And does it affect current legal and consideration policies? In answer to the first question, the rewrite of the rules, which take effect on September 1st, embodied concepts that are based on an obsolete model. The proposed rules set both professions back to a time almost 100 years ago, when the general standard for education was below the high school level. This point was elaborated on in the written document I submitted in April and then to council and the presiding officer last week. The laws were originally created licensed barber and cosmetology in 1929 and 1935, respectively. They set educational attainment below the 8th grade level, but times have changed. In 2020, the high school graduation rate was over 91%. Abolition of these rules and the minimum standards represents a step back by almost a century for both of these documents. Further, on the November 14th summit meeting, a TDLR staff member reported that the tests for both barber and cosmetology were were based on the My Lady and Pivot Point text. In reading the text, it's been assessed that they were the one was at the 10th and 11th grade level for My Lady, and Pivot Point was at the 9th grade level. Since the PSI exams are based on the test, it's reasonable to determine that those would be written at somewhere between the 9th and 11th grade level. Therefore, requiring no minimum education standard or establishing one below the expectations of the textbook and written exams creates a mismatch for student preparation and assessment. This will lead to putting underprepared students at a disservice because they've invested time, effort, and money with no return on those investments. We advocate that the verbiage for 83-200 that affirms minimum educational standards for high school and completion of the high school equivalency award. We submit this requirement can be implemented over time while honoring those who came into their professions under the legacy rules. We believe this requirement is not prohibited in law, nor by the Sunset Commission report of 2020. Return of this rule will enable students to realize their dreams while affirming that investment of time, effort, and resources are not in vain. And listening previously, I think this would be a response to Mr. Salvador Flores's question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Arrington. We appreciate you coming today. Okay, since there will be no questions, we can go back to our agenda. Am I right, Anna?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and we're ready for our number 6, Field Inspection Division. And that's Cam Tu Tran. And I know she's here.
Yes, good morning, advisory members. My name is
Thank you.
Field inspection. I am a assistant manager of the field inspection, and I will be representing the inspections today.
Kim 2, we are not able to hear you. I'm not sure. You're kind of cutting out.
Let me see. Let me check.
Maybe just speak a little louder.
No?
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. You'll have to speak up, though, because it kind
Sure.
of cuts out. So thank you.
Sure. Good morning, chairs and board members. My name is Cam Fan. I am the East Region Manager for the field inspection. I will be representing for the field inspection today. As you see in the report, the first item we have is the statistic numbers on there. You will see the fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 22 compared together within the same time from September 1st to June 6th. The number you see for the fiscal year 23 is a fewer number than the 22. The reason we have that low number because we were short in staff in the last 12 months. We have a lot of experienced inspectors retired, and we changed from periodic inspection to risk-based inspection. And the mini salon will change from 2 years announced inspection to 4 years unannounced inspection. And many staff in training in different programs. So we just hired new inspectors, 10 new inspectors in 15, and the training should be completed at the end of this year, the end of August.
Kim 2, you're cutting out again. I hate to interrupt you. You're on a roll and then it starts cutting out. I think it may be the Wi-Fi. I'm not sure.
Let me change the Wi-Fi. So can you hear me now?
I think so. Miss Lindsay, can you hear her?
It comes and goes. I can hear
Yeah.
some.
Yeah.
Maybe if you turn off your VPN, that'll help.
Okay, let me turn it off.
Okay.
It has an echo to it. Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Try again.
Yeah, so we are hiring 10
Yeah, it's
inspectors.
still echoing. Not sure what we should do.
I changed it.
We have the written report, but I really
Yes.
did want Cam 2 to provide the oral report. But based on technical issues, and if everyone could take a look at their written report, if there were a question that we could get a response for, we will be happy to do that. Sorry about that. Even after all this time, it happens sometimes. So we're going to work on that. But we do have the written report. If that's okay, presiding officer, if anyone has a question, and if anyone has a question right now or later, reach out to advisory.boards and we will get a response to that question. We won't let technology or the lack thereof stop us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim, too. We'll be reaching out.
Okay, did anyone have a question that they would want to ask today about the inspection division report that we've been given, our statistics?
And I want to remind everyone watching that those reports are also public and have been released for public viewing. And as always, if you have a question, please contact advisory.boards. We have several folks who man that email. And it's one single repository, so we can get it handled effectively.
Okay, I was just scanned it. I don't see anything. So does anyone else? Any questions? Thank you very much. And sorry for that inconvenience to the board. Like Ms. Winston said, we'll start working on that. So that concludes item 6. We'll go to 7, and that goes to Ms. Winston, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm not going to hold us a long time with this part of it because we have work to do. The session ended. There's been one special, another special, and they haven't had anything to do with your profession. Or TDLR in general, there is other work to be done. This session, we followed over 4,000 bills. Thanks to our wonderful government relations team. Jeff Copas is the keeper of all of those things, and he does a marvelous job. When we don't see something, he sees it, and he makes us aware of it. For Barber and Cosmetology, this session wasn't big. It was last session that really brought about the changes and this new board. And we're still working on things that are required. We're definitely on our timeline, on the proper timeline, and we have more tweaks that need to be made as far as enforcement. And I see our enforcement manager, John, there ready to speak. Everything went well. We did get one more advisory board. We already regulated the mold program. We now will have a mold advisory board. That will not affect you guys at all. Just keep up the good work. That's it for my report. And I would like to, if there are no questions, that works for me.
I have
Oh,
a question.
Aurora? Yes.
Didn't the governor, wasn't his first veto a cosmetology bill?
It was.
Was that reciprocation between states, or what was that?
Oh, the compact. Yes. So that that is not. I don't see Ray still on here. Aurora, you're always up on it, no matter what board you're
I
on.
know.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm
So
like,
yes, currently that is not in place, and we will keep you updated if that does change. Cosmetology, and particularly cosmetology, there's always something that comes up. I don't know. It's very polarizing. Who would have thought it, right? But it's true. But I mean, I love my stylist, so there you go. But there are no changes yet. If the compact comes into place, if something else happens, we will let you know. From the 87th, we still have some work that we're putting in place, but so far so good.
Any more questions?
Is it possible to go back to the education examination division? I had my hand up, and I don't think anybody saw it.
I'm
Thank
sorry,
you,
Miss Valdez.
Ms.
We missed
Valdez.
that.
I just had a question in reference to the provider PSI who administers the exam. They offer a practice test, and I'm wondering if it's possible to get information from them on people that have utilized that test and what their pass rate is.
Michael Strawn, Education Examination Division. I don't have any numbers offhand of what, or if PSI can tell how many people have downloaded that. I don't know that even if they could, I can potentially ask to see how many people have utilized that. There is nothing, however, within our databases that when we send an eligibility file over to them, or when they send that back to us, that we would be able to correlate or match somebody who has taken a practice exam to their record. We tie it to schools and everything else. You've seen your score reports for schools, pass rates for the state, the medians, everything else. But there is nothing in the system for us or to PSI to tie that practice exam to them. So I can promise you I won't be able to do that. I might be able to figure out how many clicks they had on that from their website and report that back to you all.
I would like to add, this is Ray, Director for Education Examination Division. I'd like to add that those practice tests was not meant to prepare someone to pass an examination. That's what the education is for in going to school. The practice exam is meant to help a student or an individual navigate on when they're utilizing the technology, to what Mary's saying, but everybody has problems with technology, to help them navigate the technology when they're at the exam site. Remember, students and anyone who takes an exam, the number one thing that people fight or have trouble with is anxiety, exam anxiety. So this is sort of trying to relieve some of that anxiety, telling them this is how you do this. If you're going to click A, or you can use a keyboard, or you could use a mouse. And we utilize old items that have been basically decommissioned and will never revive those items ever again. So they're not meant to teach anybody anything, but just meant to help them navigate.
And Mr. Perzar is correct. That is often what we see as well, and why those were prepared. And we've seen great success even with the introduction of the remote or the e-exam stuff. Being able to take your examination from the comfort of your home has really helped individuals in that regard as well. We have great feedback on that. But I thought Ray eloquently put all of that into context as well.
I know they're charging a fee for it, so I'm just curious if it's possible to ask them for that information, because students ask, is it worth taking that? And I think the answer is that it's not something that is approved by the state. It's just something that PSI offers independently. If possible to gather that information, I think it could be valuable in the assessment. I mean, the written exam has consistently been low, and I don't know that we should be okay with that. I think that I understand it's not going to be 100% pass rate, nor would I expect it to be, but higher than 50%, I think is a reasonable goal to try to acquire. And so that's why I'm just trying to find every avenue of how we can help to increase that pass rate on the written exam.
I'd like to,
Thank
this
you.
is Ray again, Director Education Examination. I'd like to add that my division, we are looking at those types of things. We're going to start here in the near future of helping schools understand what they're teaching and how they're teaching it, and look at best practices. We're going to be auditing curriculum so that they could understand this is not a bad thing. This is just kind of, we're going to sit with you. It's almost like those site visits we used to do. We're going to transform those site visits into more best practices and educating the schools on what they need to know and how they need to do things. Some of the open houses that we're going to have here in the future, that's only geared for schools, and it's coming up this fall with PSI. We're going to start addressing more and talking about more of the written exam, and not really getting into the practical. As you all know, everyone's passing the practical. So you're absolutely right. We need to focus more on the written, what things are doing wrong, what topics are they failing at, those kinds of things. So that is on our radar, and hopefully we could make some headway to try to increase that pass rate. So we'll see how that goes.
And Michael Strawn, Education Examination, Ms. Valdez, I mean, we certainly hear your concerns, and it's something we see in some industries as well. As Ray was saying, we've been looking to revamp a lot of the ways that we've looked at our data, the way that we're working with these schools, and we're actually reaching out to PSI recently to update our data that we're receiving. Some things that we've noticed, and it can be a little deceiving, as I made mention earlier, there's another industry we have where their pass rate's around 35%. But if you look at their first time pass rate, it's near 80%. There's individuals that come in, they really, most of the people know they pass it the first time, but the individuals who do not pass it tend to just shop the exam. They come in and just repeat it until they pass, and they bring down the overall score, which is something we don't see here, but something we can look at incorporating into y'all's pass rates as well. And I think that if we do look at data like that, look at your score reports that your schools get, those give you areas where you can see where your schools are performing, where your students are performing, areas that potentially could be addressed as well. I think all those things, when we start culminating all that data together, is going to paint a better picture for you all as well.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'd like to say one thing. This is Mary Lindsay. I appreciate the verbiage you gave us in our little packet about accommodations versus modifications, and that all schools will be able to understand that. I think that's very important, and I appreciate that being clearly defined, and so we can present that to all students, and that's very helpful. Thank you very much. Is it all, Ms. Valdez? Oh, Salvador has his hand up.
Yeah, this
Ms. Valdez, are you finished?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
This helpful.
Okay,
Just to piggyback real quick on what Laura's talking about, is exactly what I would like to know as a board member. Michael and Ray, thank you for all you do. I think you guys are doing a great job, but I do want to see a breakdown of maybe determining what is the reason that rate is low. We want to find out, is it anxiety like you spoke about? Is it the curriculum? Is it the instruction? Is it what exactly is happening? Because we got to make sure that the students we're sending out are being productive and they are going to be in the industry. And now we're defeating the purpose of why these things are happening. We know that we made a change in our commission where, you know, this educational part is really out now, but we got to figure out if this is really not working, what are we going to do as a commission? What are we going to do as an advisory board to make a change? Because this is very, very important to our industry. And when I get the calls from our constituents, I got to be able to answer to them, why is that rate low? Or from those schools, what are we doing that we're making a difference to make the students pass? Thank you.
Mr. Flores, absolutely. One of the things that the Education Examination Division is committed to is, and as y'all heard, Sunset really wanted us to utilize our data smarter. It's an initiative that we've been undertaking with our pass rates, with the information we're sending to PSI, the information we're getting back from PSI. I think that in order to make these decisions, having that data available to us and to you all is something that's going to be helpful for us all moving forward. I look forward to being able to present to you all moving forward where we are on those initiatives, what data we're getting in, and working with you all in the future to help with these endeavors. Certainly.
Mr. Flores, this is Ray, Director at E&E. I'll tell you, you're right on point. I'll tell you that a lot of the, as you know, the practical piece of the education of this both industries, barber and cosmetology, is that very thing of styling, right? Of cutting hair and doing everything this industry is known for, to do so well. The written part is mostly focused on safety, health and safety. A lot of those things are, I guess, or folks are not really learning that properly, obviously, with the low pass rate. Again, which is why I think we need to focus on those topics a little bit more. So we'll look at those. I think that's the disparity here is you're looking at health and safety versus, you know, do I know how to style somebody's hair? But the important thing for us as an agency is, do you know how to style somebody's hair being safe, right? Not cutting somebody's ear off or cutting their neck. So those are, you know, safety things that are really concerning to us. And we really touch on those on the written portion of the exam. So we'll look at a lot of these things and see how we could educate the schools and the students to be a little bit more engaging in those aspects of health and safety.
This is Mary Lindsay. I'd like to say something since Ray and Michael are here. I really appreciate Annie whenever you helped us bridge that conversation with PSI where our students that do fail do know why. And I think that's so very important. And that was very important to us as schools to be able to go back and help our students understand. And we could mediate, in other words, and there's still some students that and it's nothing in reference to the students that don't know what email they use to get the report back. And we are trying to bridge that. And I just want to give a thank you to E&E for trying to help us get that so the students can go back and be successful. But we've got to be able, as a school, to help them with that mediation piece. I guess I may be saying that wrong, but a way for them to study and go back and take that test and become successful cosmetologists, because we know they can be. They've got to go back. But I want to say that we appreciate that. And that is something that was not in place years ago and was put in so that we could go back and see why the students were missing the questions. And that's very important to us. And we've got to have open communication so that we can the students can see those reports. But I want to say thank you, and that has really helped us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Salvador, do you have anything else? Perfect. Anyone else? Okay, so we are Anna, I think I'm ready. We're ready for G. I think if I'm following in correctly.
Yes, ma'am.
Division and possible recommendation on the proposed enforcement plans and criminal conviction. And Ms. Farthington, I know that there was some questions with that. And when we get to that point, I'd like to understand if your questions were satisfied. Thank you. And we'll ask, I think it's Jessica Hurto or not. That's what I have in my script. But then I heard y'all say someone else was on there.
Yes, Miss Lindsay, it's John Medlock.
Sorry about that, John. That's the
no-
name I have, and
No worries.
I'll
Well, we're actually going to do a little tag team action here. I'm going to present a couple of the penalty matrix, and Mr. Tato is going to do the criminal conviction guidelines section. Because as we do have three different things for you guys to recommend to approve and send up to our commission for ultimate adoption. Again, my name is John Medlock. I'm Chief Prosecutor here at TDLR. I'll be presenting a couple of the penalty matrix for you guys. These were something that we went over in the work group, had few meetings with. We've got two separate ones that I'll be presenting, one for the practitioners and establishments, and another one related to the schools, instructors, and continuing education. Just a couple of overview highlights for you before we kind of dive into it a little bit is these penalty matrix, what we do is we lift the laws and rules within the this program and put them into categories, different classifications, and also break them within different subheadings and sections. It's kind of a roadmap for our prosecutors when they get a case and they're evaluating whether or not a penalty or a sanction or both need to occur within a case. They use this as kind of their roadmap for what penalties to assess, what sanctions to go after. But also it puts the public on notice because we do publish this on our website. So the public gets notice that if, for whatever reason, if there's ever a complaint filed against them, that they do kind of have an idea of what kind of penalty or sanction that might be coming forth in their way. Some differences, obviously, prior to this, there was a separate one for the barbers and the separate one for the cosmetologists. So what we have done is literally combined those two penalty matrix into one. Made a few updates, definitely changed the law citations and the rule citations so that we can easily follow where these new violations would occur and are located. The other thing we did is we condensed these into fewer classifications. Both the barbering and the cosmetology penalty matrix before this went all the way up to Class H violations. We've kind of gone with a more standardized approach with a lot of our TDLR programs and only having 4 classifications, Class A, B, C, and D. And another one of the big changes that we've made is if you look at the old penalty matrix for each one of these programs, you had a first, second, and third violations. Usually the first violation had a set penalty. Sometimes the second one did too, and then there were ranges in the third. We've gone away from that first, second, and third, and just gone to kind of the straight ranges. It helps with a couple of different things. One, it helps us if we ever have to take a case to SOA. Sometimes the ALJs, we get a little confused about whether or not that particular violation was a first or second in the way that we are alleging things. And at the same time, too, it allows for a little bit more discretion for the prosecutors to take into account some different mitigating factors that occur within a case. And so it also kind of standardizes our process across TDLR because a lot of our programs are going to these ranges and these classification systems like that. The other thing I want to let you know before we kind of just take a look at it is no matter what the case comes to, the prosecutors still have discretion to warn or close these cases depending on, like I said, those mitigating factors that occur in a case. So just because something falls within this penalty matrix, the attorneys still do have that discretion to be able to close or warn any of these cases. But with that said, I'll kind of just quickly run through some of the highlights of this new penalty matrix, and I'll first start with the practitioners and establishments. Class A violations, we have a range there from $500 to $1,500 penalties. Again, you'll see different headings such as like administrative violations, some public and posting information violations, facility and equipment violations. These are different groupings within all these Class A violations to show you that if you to quickly help you reference where something might fall within any of this stuff. At the same time, too, as we move up in class, you'll see that the severity increases. Class B violations being 1,000 to 3,500, and then you see the phrase and/or up to a 1-year suspension. That gives us the ability to do either or, a penalty or a sanction or both. And when it says up to a 1-year full suspension, that means that we can have the ability to go all the way up to 1 year. We can go different month time periods. At the same time, too, we can also do what we call a probated suspension, where we suspend somebody's license, but we probate them. It's kind of a, and they'll still be able to practice within their profession. Moving along to kind of a Class C kind of violations, you'll see that we have some unlicensed violations, some different facility and equipment violations contained within that one. But the penalty range goes up to 2,000 to 5,000. Again, that sanction of and/or up to revocation. So that kind of puts the full spectrum of the enforcement ability of what we can do within that Class C violations. And then finally, we have our Class D violations, which are kind of what we consider the ultimate and most severe violations. Here we have $3,500 to $5,000, kind of a range of penalties and/or up to a revocation. These are pretty much the violations for if you failed to comply with some previous orders, if you've kind of falsified documents. So kind of like really those ultimate severe kind of intentional things. Again, the other thing we have on here for the Class D are infection control violations when it comes to bodily fluids or some other infection control violations. These are kind of the things if you've knowingly practiced while having a contagious disease, some of those like intentional type actions. We want to make sure that, as we have stated earlier, health and safety of the public is kind of our utmost concern. So that's where we kind of lump a lot of those different violations. Kind of moving over to the schools and instructors, it's going to follow pretty much the exact same pattern as what the practitioners and establishments do. Those classifications got shrinked again from about 8, from Class H all the way down to just 4 classifications, A, B, C, and D. We did the similar thing with the penalty ranges, removing the 3 different violation sections down to just ranges. Again, those penalty ranges are the same as they were for the practitioners, of A being 500 to 1,500, B being that 1,000 to 3,500, up to a full year suspension. The C being 2,000 to 5,000 up to revocation, and then ultimately the D being 3,500 to 5,000 with up to a full revocation. Again, there's similar categories within each classification to kind of help you understand what it is potentially that you might be looking for. And the other thing that's within this is the wording within each of these classifications or each one of these sections is not the rule verbatim pulled or the law verbatim pulled and put in there. We kind of try to plain talk it so that members of the public, if they are looking for this, they can kind of plain talk, look at what this is, and understand what the violation is that they're looking at. So that's kind of what I have to present. I'll quickly turn it over to Jessica so she can present the criminal conviction guidelines. And then if you guys have any questions, we will both be happy to answer whatever questions you might have.
Thank you, John.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, almost. Advisory board members, my name is Jessica Hurtado. I'm a senior prosecutor in the Enforcement Division, and I will be presenting the proposed criminal conviction guidelines for the Barbering and Cosmetology program. Chapter 53 of the Texas Occupations Code allows TDLR to deny or to revoke a license if the person has been convicted of an offense that directly relates to the duties and responsibilities of their licensed occupation. And TDLR is required to adopt criminal conviction guidelines that specify which offenses are considered directly related to each occupation. And each program at TDLR has its own specific set of guidelines that are tailored to their industry. And these guidelines assist TDLR by specifying which crimes our prosecutors should be focusing on when they're reviewing someone's criminal history. And these guidelines also give notice to the applicants and the licensees as to what crimes are considered directly related to their occupation and the reasons why. I do want to stress that just because an individual has a criminal history that includes a guideline crime, that does not mean that they will automatically be denied a license or have their license revoked. Our criminal history prosecutors have to consider many factors when deciding whether a person's criminal history makes them unfit to hold a license, and such as the extent and nature of their past criminal activity, their age at the time the offense was committed, the amount of time that has passed since their last offense, and any evidence that they may have provided showing their rehabilitative efforts. And so we must evaluate all of these facts and make a decision on a case-by-case basis. Now, in combining the criminal conviction guidelines, I do want to thank the work groups that assisted us in doing this throughout the process. And you'll see on the proposed guidelines, you'll see they are organized by categories of crimes. And that's just simply because it would be too difficult to try to list each and every specific crime that could come up. And not only for the state of Texas, but you also have the other states and federal crimes. So instead, we list these by categories. The first two categories were carried over from the prior guidelines, so nothing has changed here. These are the crimes that involve prohibited sexual conduct or involving children as victims, and also crimes against the person. The third category was part of the barbering guidelines, but will now be new to those on the cosmetology side. These guidelines include crimes involving illegal manufacture or delivery of a controlled substance. And these guidelines are meant to capture that situation where someone could potentially use a shop or a salon as a front for selling drugs. And I do want to point out that it doesn't capture mere drug possession offenses. These are offenses that involve the selling or manufacturing of drugs. And the fourth category is also new for this program. These involve crimes involving human trafficking. As I think we all are aware, human trafficking is becoming a topic of a concern for a lot of different industries. And so by adding this category to the guidelines, We will ensure that we will have the ability in the future, if the situation were to arise, to keep someone who is involved in trafficking out of your industry. And these proposed guidelines were discussed with the enforcement work group, and no changes were made at that time. And so therefore, I'm asking that you approve these guidelines and recommend them for approval by the Commission of Licensing and Regulation. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jessica. We have any questions, concerns? Salvador, I see your hand.
Yeah, so it's a two-part question. I guess the first one will be for Mr. Matlock. I guess I want to find out on those penalties and sections.
Yes.
Are this information, is this public, number one? Number two, where can they find it? And when we talk about probate, are we talking about, for example, and I'm going to use an example, would be like if a person is having an issue or penalty constantly on hair color, that he can do anything else but hair coloring? I just want to make sure I can get some clarification on that first.
Okay, so to answer the first question, yes, these what will happen is right now they're not public because we're trying to get them published, but the current ones will be found or they are found on our website. So if you go to the program pages, the barbering and the cosmetology pages, on the right hand side of the screen, there is an enforcement section that you can couple clicks and you can get there, and they will be published there. Likewise, once this gets approved by the commission, this will also be public as well on our website that you'll be able to find. Now, when it comes to the probation part, we have the ability, depending on the classification of violation, is to issue a sanction against somebody. Like, let's say we suspend someone's license. That means that they can't work for that period of time. But we can, what we call, probate that suspension, which basically means the suspension is still in place, but we're going to pull it back and hold it so that person can still work. But if they were to commit another violation during that that probated period, we can look to then go ahead and possibly enforce that suspension against that person. Depending on what the violation is, we might even look to go something more severe. But it does allow that person to have a sanction against their license, but at the same time still continue to work.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that very much. That's good
Absolutely.
information. And then the next question for Mrs. Orthado, is that correct, Orthado?
Yes, sir.
Yes. I guess I want to know if you're considering also on these guidelines that we're trying to look at, are we also looking at situations such before a student enrolls in school that they know this? That would be question number one. Number two would be also when the person is in the program, will they be able to continue on the program or will they not be able to? And the third would be when they do take the exam, do we check for that as well before they take their exam?
So just like Mr. Medlock was saying, with the enforcement plan being on our website, the criminal conviction guidelines are also on our website. And once these are adopted and approved, they'll be put up for the public, including anyone in the industry to look at. Now, I'm sorry, you had a three-part question, so I'm just trying to remember the second part.
The second one was if a student is in the program and he commits a crime, would that eliminate him from staying in the program, or he has to, he can finish or not finish?
So we check criminal histories at the time of license application. So if it occurs when they're a student, we won't necessarily know about it until they apply. But like I was saying, we always take into consideration all of the different factors that go into the offense. So it would be a case-by-case determination as to whether they would be able to get a license, or if we issued a proposed denial, then they could request a hearing, which would go to before the State Office of Administrative Hearings and ultimately would go before the commission for a final decision.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, Jessica. This is Christina Kaiser. I would like to just add a little bit to your answer, if that's okay, Jessica. This is Christina Kaiser, Senior Deputy Executive Director with TDLR. Your question about students, One thing I just mentioned as well, we have a whole separate process that's available to people if they are thinking about entering a particular profession, but they want to know if their criminal history would be a problem. It's called a criminal history evaluation letter. So the person who is a would-be student, or even if they're already a student and they have some interaction with the criminal justice system, if they want to know if that might prevent them from getting a license, they can request that criminal history evaluation letter at any time. There's like the other two folks have already said, there is information about that on our website. And there's a small fee. I want to say it's $10. And the person would undergo the same criminal background check that they would undergo if they actually applied for a license. And that's just a way of people getting kind of an advanced look before they spend the time going to school.
Does that answer your questions, Salvador? Okay, you're good. Anyone else? Ms. Farthing, did they answer everything that you needed answered?
Yes, ma'am. My concern was regard to just a blanket denial for anyone with any kind of drug offense. And as Jessica said, they assured me that they look at, the whole. So say, for example, you're a teenager, you were arrested for distributing drugs. That's not going to preclude you from going into the career later in life necessarily. So that satisfied my concern. I just did not want a blanket denial for things that people do. Life is long. So, so I appreciated their response, and I don't have any concerns at this time.
Great, thank you very much. And my mind may be wondering, because I may have remembered that from work group, so I'm sorry about that if that's. Okay, so we don't have any other questions. Questions, anybody? Okay, that was our item G, and now we have going to item H, if that's okay.
Hold on,
Anna, do
Ms.
you have
Lindsay,
something?
real quick, we would just make a motion to
I'm
adopt
sorry.
these and recommend
Yes.
moving them over to our commission for adoption, for formal adoption.
Thank you. So we need a motion or recommendation to accept as reported?
Yeah,
Does that sound okay?
to accept the criminal conviction guidelines, to
Criminal
accept the penalty matrix for practitioners and establishments, and then the one also for schools.
Okay.
Derek, I don't know if we want to do it in one motion or if we want to do it in three separate motion, whichever might be cleaner.
I think one motion is fine unless we need to address something specific.
Okay.
Do we have a motion to accept the recommendations for the criminal conviction and the penalties? Did I say that okay, John?
That works for us.
Okay. Do you have a motion, please?
Hey, Mayor Lindsay, this is Ledrick Leonard, and I make a motion to accept the criminal conviction adjustments and recommendations.
This is Nayland Natalie Enderman, and I second.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we'll have a vote now, or?
Yes, ma'am. Who was the one who seconded first? I have Enderman and
Natalie Enderman.
Okay, Enderman. I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote for you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ledrick Leonard. Natalie Enderman.
I approve.
Nayland Holman.
I approve.
Darren Peterson.
I approve.
Laura Valdez.
Aye.
Aurora Farthing.
Aye.
Salvador Flores.
Aye.
And presiding officer Mary Lindsay.
Approved. Thank you.
The motion passes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
So we're down to item H. Am I right, Anna?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Anything else we're supposed to discuss before we go to H, which is We asked the board if there are any recommendations for the next meeting or anything else anyone wants to report out before we do that.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I make a recommendation?
Yes.
Just based on our person that spoke today, and also with concerns to the written pass rate for the written exam, I would like to motion that we consider the age requirement for school and making a high school equivalency and putting that into place.
So, Ms. Valdez, Mary Winston, we'll have to back it up a little bit. Um, so, your recommendation, great recommendation, but if you could repeat that one more time.
To look at placing a requirement for age level for entering school for cosmetology or barber.
Okay, and that would require, I'm looking to see if E&E is on the, so that is not currently up for vote, but that can, we can definitely take that as a recommendation for further discussion at our next meeting. Okay, Anna, you got that? Well, it's recorded, so we all have that. So we will definitely take a look at that, and that will have to go towards the next meeting as it needs to be agended.
And I would like to put that on record as well, that I would second that myself.
Okay.
And
So, yeah.
this is Aurora Farthing. I want to say we did go over some of this in some previous work group discussions. So I feel like there is some history on this discussion somewhere in our meetings.
Yes, Ms. Farthing, there is history. We do have folks still listening in who've given reports. So the work groups that discuss that and kind of getting to that end, of that requested end, we can definitely get into a work group and before we meet next time, because I think we've had discussions related to that, but that's for consideration next time. So we're still good.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Valdez and Salvador. Okay, do we have other recommendations for our meeting, our next meeting? Okay.
As always, if there are other recommendations post-meeting, I'm going to throw out that email one more time, advisory.boards@tdlr.texas.gov. So if there's something when we get off of this meeting and you think, should have said that, don't think it's not impossible, that it's impossible to say. We just get it to us for consideration at the next meeting. There's no pressure to get it to us right now.
Thank you. So if there's no more recommendations and you know how to send those in, if you don't have them right now, then we'll go to our item I, discussion of date and time and location of our next advisory meeting. Anyone want to make a recommendation?
And this is Derek Burkhalter, the Assistant General Counsel for TDLR. We don't have a timeline for any kind of rule changes right now. We're mainly focused on the September 1st implementation day. So if, as far as the future date, we can follow up with you on that and reach out to you when we have some matters that we can present to you.
Thank you. So it doesn't have, Derek, what you're saying doesn't have to be decided right now.
Correct.
Okay.
I think Mary's trying to speak.
Derek, you have a little bit of an echo, but I think we all got it. We don't have to make that decision right now. And Anna will poll the board at a date for, which typically gives 3 options, and we work from there. So our general counsel's office does not need to meet ASAP. But we have Miss Valdez, her concern, and that may be statutory, but we'll discuss that later, and in work groups. So Anna will contact everyone for the future meeting, and you therefore do have time, if you have other concerns that you'd like to be put on the agenda, to reach out to us and let us know.
Thank you. We'd like to thank everyone for participating today. And it is 11:35 if we want to adjourn the meeting. Anyone have any comment? Thank you again for your support. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, board members. Thank you.